Okay, we are going to get started. Okay, we are doing a class on client conversations and contracts. And the reason that we're doing that is because we're getting into an industry where there are a lot of high ticket services or you're growing your businesses and doing big orders or special events, whatever that may be. And so it's important to kind of have the conversation around building a contract, why a contract is important, what are some of the things that you can do, kind of the process of utilizing a contract and creating a strong one. I also have copies of contracts as examples, which will also be uploaded into our private group as well, that you guys can edit and utilize for yourself. So I always start my classes with the 3 containers. So the reason that we do this is I just kind of want to set a foundation of how these classes are set up, how you how to just get the most and maximum out of that. Hi, come on in.
I got like 42 minutes before I have a client.
No, please come in and join us. Eat food in the back if you're hungry. And so we're always going to start with the 3 containers. I'm going to explain that. Then I'll have 5 rules. There's always rules in the classroom, not to sound like too teachery, but they're just basic foundation of how I set up my classes. So the 3 containers, the first container is to be the student. When you're the student, you're obviously here to learn. I'm going to be throwing out a lot of information and a lot of stuff out for you in a short amount of time. And sometimes it can be overwhelming. That's why we record the classes. That's why we talk. But when you're sitting in the seat, you're a student. Sometimes I'm the student when you guys are talking and I'm listening. The second container is the teacher. Obviously, I'm the educator up at the top. I'm teaching you guys about conversations and contracts and everything, but you'll have an opportunity to be an educator too, whenever you want to share from experiences, what worked, what hasn't, and everything, and then other people can learn. The next part of the 3 containers is to be the material. So your experience and what you share becomes the material. I'll talk and give you some things that have worked for me and things that have not worked for me so that you can know what to avoid and what to do when you are implementing contracts in your business. Because I've gotten very lucky sometimes with my contract and then still gotten money, even though somebody wanted to back out at the last minute. And so the contract saved my butt. So do you guys have any questions about the 3 containers? It's pretty clear. Perfect. So we're going to go into the 5 rules. The first rule is to be open. So being in a classroom, it's really easy to say, oh, I've heard that before. Oh, I already know that. But if you're open to learning something new today, I think you will be surprised. Even if you hear the same thing over and over, you can always learn something different. But that comes from being open. Be present. So right here, right now, no, phone calls, no, if your kids aren't here, you don't have to, just really focus in, because yes, we can record it, but you're right here. So you might as well take the most of it and invest in your business. The third one is to don't hide. So if you have a question or you have something to say or something doesn't make sense, or I'm just rattling so fast that your brain can't keep up, speak up. I don't know everything, but I do know that the more we talk and the more we are able to communicate, the better that the class will be. The fourth one is to go all in. When you have a business and you spend time servicing your clients or managing your business, you might as well go all in on it, or just go work for somebody else. So being in this classroom, you're going all in on your business, which is a really great thing. And then the last one is to never give up. They're not really hard rules, but you'd be surprised how many people will start to doze off or bounce out of their attention span because they're like, oh, okay, this doesn't pertain to me. We're going to talk about all different industries all the time, but how you utilize these, you can customize this. I'm just giving you a general and broad spectrum of what that building a contract and having a conversation around that looks like, and how to work with other people to make money too. Any questions? Not yet. Okay, Michaela, any questions? Oh, let me admit people here.
No, I'm good. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. So we're going to get started we're going to talk about contracts first. Can somebody tell me what a contract is?
Agreement.
Yep, it's an agreement. I promise you my classes aren't hard. What our agreements in our industry is it's an agreement from a business to a client for a service. Whether that may be whether you're doing hair services, skin services, makeup services, bartending, like hosting the event, like if we do events here, there's a contract always in place. And what that does is that it's just a clear agreement, like what each party can expect of the other when going in, especially when you're talking about high ticket services. Like when you're charging somebody $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, like that's a lot of money. And you want to get that locked down on your end and then also make sure that they know what they're getting for that money. So can somebody tell me, actually just kind of went into why this is important, right? So it's important because you can have clear expectations. Contracts are also really important because the firmer you are with contracts, the easier it is to create policies in your business that you don't budge from. And then the time that you work is worth it. Because if somebody's going to say, oh, I decided that we weren't going to get married and that was 2 days ago, well, I'm really sorry you emotionally can't get it together, but I'm also running a business and you owe the money. Because every other thing in the bridal industry or event industry, business is done with a contract. You think wedding venues do things without contracts? No. Do you think we do things here without contracts with beauty professionals? No. So why wouldn't you operate your business the same, especially when you're talking about hundreds, if not thousands of dollars? It's just kind of like insurance for those agreements. Your insurance of your sales. I will tell you a story. I didn't used to have contracts in my business and I would do friends' hair for their wedding. And this one girl was a nightmare and she was a bridezilla and I told her to comb her tits were my exact words on her wedding day. And I walked out and came back and she was very nice. And I did everybody's hair. And she said, because of your attitude, you're not getting paid. And that was the very last time or day that I ever worked without signing a big bridal contract. I had done 7 people's hair by myself and I had done her extensions for free, didn't have an extension agreement or anything, her color, her everything, just trying to be her friend. And I was out thousands of dollars. Like the service is already done. Now what? She's getting married in 10 minutes and she's just like, I don't care. What are you going to do? Like I didn't have any information. So by now me having these contracts, it's an insurance that I'm going to make that sale. And no matter what, whether the service is done or not. How to utilize these is with high ticket services. We'll talk about high ticket services or events. And then also in networking. So let's say that I do hair and I say, hey, Michaela, can you do makeup with me? And then Michaela blocks off the time. I block off the time. Now there's 2 people that are counting on making money. And then the bride wants to cancel. Now we've just screwed 2 people. And so you can utilize these contracts to make sure that you and the other person that you're working with in here or in the industry can make the money too. So somebody's gonna want to work with you if they know they're going to get paid. And it's really easy to be like, oh, I have this event. I have a bartender. Hey, let me hook you up with this girl. Like I'll put it in the contract. Don't even worry about it. And the bigger the contract, the more money it's worth and the better service that you're providing for the client. If somebody wants to book like waxing services or facial or like bridal prep,
Dermaplaning. And
Dermaplaning.
I've had a lot of makeup artists reach out to me to ask if I'd like to do dermaplaning prior to their makeup application and stuff, but I don't know how, like, is that something that's paid out in their contract? And then like say it was you and me and then you can like talk about it.
That's something that we'll talk about, like how to set that. You can customize however you want. I have done this with Michaela before. We did Julianne's wedding. She used to be a tenant in here and there was like 12 people So me, Ruthie, and Michaela all showed up and we did hair. And Michaela gets paid $1,200, $1,400. Ruthie gets paid the same, and I get paid the same because I contracted with Julianne, like, hey, and I just told her, like, I'll handle everything. And I asked Michaela, how much do you charge? I told Julianne, this is how much she charges for makeup. Could she pay directly that beauty professional? Sure. But when I deal with brides and they're like a referral for me, it's easier for me to be like, I'll take care of everybody because you're going to get paid your rate no matter what. Like I'm not in this to make a profit. But I'm willing to pay you whatever. And if it's easy for the bride to pay and talk to one person, all you do is 1099 your beauty professional that you're networking with at the end of the year. And it makes it a easier. Or you maybe guys come up to a package thing, they pay you for a package. And it's contracted that they have to pay for that for those services. Right. And all those services are to be done before their wedding day, like within 7 days of their wedding. You can add that into the contract if you want. You could offer full service, for everything and for the bridal party. The barbers can also say, hey, look, what if we did men's haircuts for the whole bridal party? And now you're like, I got the guys in on barbers. It's just not the day of. So you would have to put like stipulations on that. Like they all have to come in within 4 days or something like that, all of these facials. And then you just network. Could you imagine how much that contract's gonna be worth? Yeah. 10 grand.
Yeah, no, that's
and it's easy. If the bride's like, I'll just pay you, and you just have some paperwork to do, or you're just like, hey, this is how much you pay this business, invoice them. This is how much you pay her, and then you invoice this, and then everybody gets paid. But it's written in the contract that they absolutely have to do that. They're committing to that. Right. So it ensures that we can all charge. And when we're talking about deposits and stuff, so does that make sense? Does that answer your question? No, Michaela said my first wedding I ever did was something very similar, like working and somebody gets an attitude and then they're done, and they don't want to pay you, like not today, not at this level that you guys are operating businesses. Absolutely not. And then the bridal industry, I'm going to talk about a lot because that's where a lot of like this money is, and these big contracts lie in the beauty industry.
You need to know how to tap into bridal. That's like somewhere that other than like a few word about it.
That's just working, like honestly, networking with a hairstylist to be like, oh, how do I bring skincare to a bride or a package to a bride? Get in on a bride, like a hairstylist contract, just say, hey, look, I'd love to network with you. Like if you want to add that into the bridal contract, I will add that into my bridal contract, start sending that out to all the brides that for 2023. I'm willing to do that. And then that's how you build up that business. You're just creating a service and everybody's independent here. So, but if also somebody's like, no, I require a contract to be signed in my business for my work, you have to respect that too. So it's just, you kind of have to work it out. It just depends on who you're working with. Right. When do you utilize contracts? When there's big money involved, like I said, or when you're working, like doing trial runs for hair and stuff, and they pay for the trial run, or my trial runs are included in the price, and the price is just elevated. So they have to pay a deposit. You technically have been paid for that time, and then you get paid for your time on the wedding day. Or they have to pay for everything ahead of time, no questions. That's just how you want to create that contract, is really up to you. But anytime you're dealing with big money, events, or multiple people, or multiple businesses. If I can spell here. Does anybody have questions about contracts, what they are, how do you like, when they're necessary and stuff? Everything good? Okay.
Lacey, when would it be necessary to use, like you said, with multiple individuals for businesses? Like if I did makeup with or hair with somebody else, or like barbers and stuff like that, when would that come into play, or just kind of as it goes?
Are you talking about when a bride contacts you?
No, like we were just explaining about, like if there was a barber, like esthetician and makeup artist and stuff like that in all one contract, yeah. When would that really apply?
You can have it pre-written, say, hey, we can offer all these services for you, and then you just have to know which people to network with. I mean, all of our makeup artists in here all charge the same, so it's easy for me to put that price in my agreement. And then when somebody needs hair or makeup, I just ask the 1 out of 3 of you guys who's available and just say, hey, lock down the date, let me send you a deposit. So
Okay.
I would do it right away. Like, hey, this is what I can offer you. If you just want hair, just want bartending services, but did you know you can get skincare? But did you know, like, the hairstylists kind of have the ability to control and be able to pump money to other people because they're the ones that are sought after for those bridal services or makeup. And so bartending, decals, signs, t-shirts, all that kind of stuff can be like, hey, look, what if we created like a bridal package? Like, you could do just services, you could hire me just for hair or for makeup, but also we have by network, like a preferred vendor. Is that what you called that? When we were talking about venues the other day, they're called preferred vendors. You can create your own preferred vendor list. And
Got
by
it.
so you could say, hey, I want to do that. And if they're like, I really want to have the barbers and have it, and just say, let me get everybody on board and confirm with you, and then I'll send you the contract. Does that answer your question, Michaela?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
What about like a monthly contract? Like now that I'm doing spray tanning,
Mhm.
I've been thinking of doing like a monthly contract. That's not, or
Yeah.
even like a Brazilian contract for like monthly to get it
Yeah,
up.
like a membership.
But the hardest thing, which I know this is kind of in another realm, is I'm just getting.
We'll talk about creating policy. We'll go on to that. So we create a policy, right? Like so we know what a contract is and when we need to utilize it. The next thing we need to do is create a policy around the contract. Like the contract will be created through this whole process of like, this is how I operate. But policy is just how you operate. Your standard operating procedures, big corporations call those SOPs, right? And then you have to figure out what's important to you. No shows, like you need to have a cancellation or no show policy.
It's the chargebacks that are getting me because I have a cancellation or a no show. And then if you charge and they dispute it, 9 times out of 10.
If they have a membership and they sign a contract, you would be able to avoid the disputed charges. I would also fire that person as a client, and they would never be welcome back into my business if they ever disputed a charge for the time that they took up and did not pay for.
Yeah,
that would be a unwritten rule in my business. Like if you no show me, or even if you like talk about the wrong things in my salon, I'm like willing to like you're out, because I'm building a business that's like high level. So people are doing that to you, like we can build your business in a different way so that you're not just sitting around and you're able to maximize your time. Cancellation and no-show policies would require you to get information, hard information and stuff. So you can create a one-page agreement saying, this is a 12-month membership. It's going to needs to be paid by this date. If not, your card will be charged. You have to set that up in your credit card processing on the back end, which you could do if you had a card on file.
Right.
That's really easy to do. But yeah, you could just create a membership agreement is what that would be. And it's still a contract. And then just say, I'm offering Brazilian memberships and this is how much it is. It's a 6-month or 12-month program. You can launch it as a 6-month if that's easier.
Yeah.
And then see how many people take on. And then just say maybe the 6-month program, the rate is a little bit higher than the year. And then you get their credit card information and you get them to sign and it say like, I agree to pay. And I'll give you copies of these agreements too, so that you can see what the wording is. It says like, I am agreeing to pay this, and this on this day. And you can fill it all in, or you can make it all digital. So does that answer your question? Yeah. So cancellation and no shows, deposits, big thing. I don't ever do an event or like Sarah, you with a clothing order, or Jessica with an like bartending event, never without a deposit. Never say, oh, I'm going to save the day. I did that to somebody me and Jessica know very well. And she was like, oh, I want this date, like save it for me, saved it for almost 2 years. And then she backed out at the last minute. And I was so mad. I never got her to sign a contract. So I was like, oh, she's just a friend. Like, but good old Snohomish and their drama, like she just backed out. And I was like, had the day off, which was great. But then also I'm running a business and wanted that income. Right. But because I didn't have like strong agreements or policies, I kind of got screwed by a friend. I will slip a copy underneath your door. Yes, I will do that. And then another policy is like, what are your negotiables and non-negotiables? Like I have some people that are like, I would love to pay you a deposit. I just don't know how many people I'm going to have a year from now. Like, I'm willing to negotiate that and have them say, you need to pay for at least a couple services, or full price for a couple services, at least theirs. And the deposits, if you have for other beauty professionals, like let's say I have a makeup artist and then skincare and stuff, everybody should get a deposit and that signed agreement. And then the rest will be due, or just have a deadline. Like, you have to decide within 4 months of your wedding how many people are getting, because you have to build out a timeline for the day of, and stuff, or book appointments before their big day. So you can negotiate if you want to. Some people not willing. Like, what are your minimums? Are you willing to do only the bride, or are you going to have like a 4-person minimum if you go on site? Or are you gonna have a 4-hour minimum? Or what's your clothing order minimum? Is it a $500 order? Is it 50 pieces? You have to figure out what is going to work best for you. Creating a policies around negotiables. And these don't necessarily have to be like written out. These are just a policy that you need to know. This is how I operate my business. But these policies, these non-negotiables, will become like, this is how we do things here. And then, like, I like to head the bridal contracts a lot because it's an opportunity for me to teach. Like, I've taught Berta how to like really assist well at wedding hair, and she's gotten better and better and better at it. And I give her the opportunity because I'm like, hey, I need help. She's reliable. She blocks off the day. I send her a deposit, her time, and she makes $400, $500, $600, $700 in a couple hours with me. And then we can do people's hair in 3 hours versus 6 to 8, creating a higher level of service. Or you're just hammering out everybody's hair. And I do it so that I'm like, look, it's easy money for you. It's easy money for me. It's easy money for you. And it's fun to kind of do things with other people too. And then non-negotiables. What are you guys hearing so far? Pertaining around.
Run the show.
Yeah.
That we run the show.
Yeah, you run the show. Yeah. It's important. Michaela says your time is money. Absolutely. Like, this helps you create super strong boundaries in your business for services. And then when you show up and say, oh, you're interested in services for me, we'll talk about the journey that people go through from that to like the time that they find you to the time that they like pay you. We'll talk about this journey, but like, you just say, hey, this is how I operate. This is what you need to do. You tell them how this goes. These are the things I can offer you. What that tells them is this person knows what they're doing. Even if you do not, you're like, I'm figuring this out, but it appears that you are strong in your boundaries, that the money that they're going to pay you is worth it, and signing the contract is also worth it. If you're kind of shady or wish-washy about the contract or about how you operate or getting back to people, or you don't really know how to do things, they're not going to want to sign the contract with you, and they're more likely to cancel on you. And then why are you even tapping into $1,000 high ticketed services? This goes for skincare stuff. I have, you guys have a bunch of forms in your business and stuff. There's a lot of people starting out that don't have those forms. So there's skincare intake forms that you need to have, right? Like, what do you use? Because if I put something in, it burns your skin and you try to sue me, like, no, you send this intake form. As simple as even just intaking a client into your business sometimes needs a signed agreement. And also, when you have agreements like that, they kind of hold them to it. So if brides want to get crazy, or you want to network with somebody, or you're networking with someone and they're witchy-washy about being on the contract, you just know that's not a person to work with in your business. Like, I've worked with Michaela so easy. Like with Berta, with all the other girls, like, it's easy. Jessica just bartended a wedding. I did hair and stuff for it, and Katie did makeup, and it was awesome. And I was just like, hey, look, I have this bride, like, she needs this, this, and this, and this. And now look, 3 or 4 people are making money, and we all get to be like, hey. And the event runs better for the bride because everybody is networked together. And then the hairstylist is created, or the bartender, or skincare, or whatever, has prepped her, and the experience is amazing. So you're going to get other people like that. And then that just creates momentum for them to refer. And then that's how you really build that business. I do have a contract. I have a hair extension deposit agreement, and I have a chemical release form. I will slip all of those underneath your door. And I'm going to have Ilsa upload the files to the private group as well tomorrow. And then this creates confidence too. This also, like, we're gonna go into conversation after this, is because when you have policies, that helps cut out the weird part of conversations. Because if you have it written down in an agreement, like in a contract, like it is what it is. That's it. But if somebody's like, hey, how much do you charge for this? And you're like, oh, $200 an hour. And they're like, oh, that might be a little much for you now. You start to feel bad. Then you just want the client. And then you're like, oh, I'm willing to work a deal. And then everything that you're building here is worthless. You know, and then networking. And then could you imagine if somebody showed up and wanted a contract with me and that was like, oh, I'm not really sure. Like, I don't know what the date is. I don't really know the time. I don't have a timeline. The bride has it. Like, paid a deposit. I'd be like, yeah, no. Because my time is worth so much more than that. You guys have kids, like, you run businesses, you work full time. Like, it's important to be clear on it. This helps create confidence so you don't have to have the weird conversations and feel like you have to discount something to appease someone, because that happens a lot in our industry. Okay, this conversation piece is obviously, what is a conversation? It's literally communication between two people. And you can communicate in a lot of different ways. Text, email, in person, referral, somebody can refer you to them, and then they've built you up powerfully, and it kind of gives you credibility. Like, there's a bunch of different ways to like communicate and have conversations with people. In your salon, your contract is a big conversation piece for this. It's just, hey, so you don't have to repeat yourself, and it streamlines everything. And then it starts to show like, okay, we're going to lock this down and get this like moving, and we're going to continue to do this. And then anything that comes up that doesn't work for you, you can be like, no, we had a conversation about this. It's in the agreement. Now you're getting outside of the agreement. We have a problem.
How do you have a conversation? I'm sure it's easier for large to get like weddings and stuff like that, but to have a contract for
like when a client first comes in, just
like,
say,
drop the bomb on that, like, hey, I work by contract, like,
yeah, like, hey, would you like to receive this high ticket service? Please sign this agreement. And like, maybe use agreement versus contract, because contract can be kind of scary. Like, that's why we don't say, hey, look, let me send you a lease contract. We say, let's sign you a lease agreement or a suite rental agreement or a tenant agreement and stuff, because an agreement is one, I think, a softer, less intimidating word. And I think it sounds prettier than like, let's sign a contract together. Let's have like, it just, that for women, I feel like that comes off a little brass. And if you're like, hey, let's make an agreement. And they're like, okay, let's do that. And it's just professionalism, I think. So I would just say, hey, look, we have agreements. I need you to fill out these intake forms. And this is what we offer. And if they say no, then don't service them. It's just the way you operate.
Yeah.
You know? And if you get them to sign all the forms prior, the intake forms and all that, and you put in your intake form, required. Like, these are required to be serviced. And if you don't have them, cancel the appointment and charge them. Because it's a policy that you have in your business that all these need to be done. And if it's not done within 24 hours, you're being charged a cancellation fee. And then you're like, and then you're not messing around. People might get charged 1 or 2 times a cancellation or no-show fee. Like, I had a bride not show up for a trial run. Oh, I charged her. Because that was going to be like, trial runs are included. I charged you for her time. And she got a little upset. And I was like, you need to understand, like, this is my time. I have a policy in the business. Even though your trial one was included in your contract, you still no-showed the appointment, which violated a different policy. And she was like, oh, I understand. Guess who was there and on time and on track for every single thing for the rest of the contract? She was. So sometimes you just need to place it to them, or just say, hey, look, this isn't going to work out. Conversation, why are conversations important? Because just like being over here, it creates clarity. Clarity between two people of like, this is how much I'm going to charge, and and the conversations are good, because then if questions come up, you can at any point in time say, hey, this isn't going to work. So you get to kind of control quotations control the transaction, which is exactly what you need to do as a business owner. And then how to have these conversations. We'll kind of talk about how to incorporate these conversations. All of this really is just informing, this is how I operate. So the conversation piece around the contracts doesn't have to be scary. If you just create a routine and a policy, like this is how it's done, that's the conversation. And it makes it just straightforward. You know it well. And then you just have to, that's the only way you handle these big tickets. Like, this is the way I operate. This is the way I operate. This is the way I operate. Yes, no, sign the date, move on. And then the journey is part of like the booking and the networking, and we'll talk about that. But this piece can be a killer to high ticket services, because people will try to ask you for a discount. And if you're just have this in place, they can't ask you for a discount and the conversation doesn't get weird, then they can't control you in your business. How to have conversations is going to be, it's going to be continuous. You want to have continuous conversations with people because this is about the experience. I'll send you the replay too, so you can watch the rest of it. It's also about the experience as well with the client. Like, the more you communicate and the clearer you are about the policies and the way, it makes the process of getting that money and working with people so much easier, so you can take on more. I did 18 weddings this summer, and it's the most amount of money I've ever done in bridal hair in my whole career. And I upped my prices and people are still signing contracts. Now I'm going to offer more services, and it just is like, it's growing and growing, and I don't even need to advertise that I do hair. So it makes it easy. So the conversation is always continuous. And then when is going to kind of fall, like how and when is going to, they're going to be the same. Like, you're always going to be trying to talk to them, but it's always going to be through your policies. Continuous policy. Does anybody have any questions about conversations? No. Do you find it hard to have conversations with people?
Yeah.
Why?
Because don't find myself very, I'm not good with my words.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't think I'm good.
Okay, so not being good with your words kind of creates a little bit of uncertainty. So if somebody comes to you, then it creates this like little bit, like we're talking about, like back and forth, like, I'm not really sure. It's nice because the contract is like I said, is the conversation. So that will really help you. Like, hey, this is, and then if they have any questions, then you just answer questions after that. Yeah. Ladies on Zoom, do you guys have any questions or any comments about conversations before we get into high ticket services?
Not really. I feel like my conversations with my past clients are weird because I never did deposits before. So now that I do deposits, sometimes I feel like it's awkward to be like, hey, but a lot of people understand that it's a business, you know. So
yeah, and it's just, hey, just like a no-show policy, like, hey, I incorporated this. Hey, I have like, you have to pre-book. Hey, like, this is, I have a price increase. People are either going to love it or they're not. And if they say no, just say, hey, I understand. If I can ever help you, just contact me again and we'll get you a deposit paid and get you on your books. Like, have nothing about it. It's kind of hard and weird, but you got to just, okay. And they will come back around eventually, but it's just going to be, you just have to be consistent with that. Like, don't really negotiate on that for even somebody that you've had for a really long time. They will be the people that burn you first, actually, as you grow, if you don't have contracts with them. So, okay, so we're going to go into high ticket services. We're going to talk about what your rates are versus the amount of time that you spend. Now, you can do contracts by hour, by service. You could do both. You could have, I have a travel fee. I have an early start fee. I have an extension application fee. Like, somebody got a whole clip-in set of extension that adds 30 minutes to my time. They're paying for that. And you already know that you have to do that because you've done the trial run, or you've talked to them and had this signed contract and gotten all the information for them. So you need to figure out what your rate is going to be for the time. Now, if you're like, I really want to average $75 to $100 an hour, and it's going to take you an hour and a half to do the service, or if you're going to be there for 3 or 4 hours, is that enough? Like totally enough. You're like, okay, $100 an hour. I'm going to be there for 4 hours. Is $400 worth it for me to go be at this event? And if the answer is no, then one, you're not charging enough, or two, add other fees. Like if you have to drive, you should charge a travel fee. If you have to go on site, or you just raise your prices high enough that it includes, and that's something you can advertise is like no travel fee, so you can do service by time. You can package the services together, like with other beauty professionals. You can build packages. Like if somebody wants like a queen goddess, like the ultimate bridal package, which means that the grooms get done, the bridal party gets done, hair and makeup, waxing and everything, and it's one of those giant contracts. Maybe they get a little bit of a discount on each one of those services if they book a package. So you can kind of create this to work for you. So early start fees. That's going to be hard for you, Jess, because it's typically in the evening, right? But have you ever thought about doing birthday parties and other events too? Or like, what if businesses have events and they need you to be there for holiday parties, stuff like that? There are a lot of churches and other organizations that aren't really, or they don't include alcohol, but they still need somebody to serve food. Like, what if you found a church that does a bunch of stuff and you're like, hey, look, I can serve the food and whatever drinks, whether it's Sprite or beer, doesn't matter. And then you offer that as a service to them, and you just get well known. The more events you do, the more you're just getting paid for your time. And the contract can be the same, whether it's a bride or if it's a business.
Yeah.
Early start fees, travel fees. And if you have this all in your contract, now you don't have to say like, when I started this, I felt like, oh, wow, I'm gonna have a travel fee and this fee and this fee and this fee. Like, man, that's really charging the bride like $400 or $500 or $600 just for her hair. And then when you tack on 7 more people and you're having to bring an assistant, you guys are having to travel, then I'm like, yeah, no, they're paying all of these fees. Because I could just go work in my salon and make double that and not have to go anywhere. Like it's an event. Like there are things in this industry that are inflated, and bridal stuff or events is kind of one of them. And then in your business, like if you have a cancellation, like what's your cancellation fee? Is it 50%? Is it a flat fee? Like, is it a dollar amount or a percentage? I typically will charge for Michaela wants to know, what do you charge for an early morning start? Anything before 8 a.m. I'll charge the bride like $75. Like that's if I have to be there at 7 and I'm going to be done by 10 and I only have a couple people, I might just say, hey, for you, I'll take out this early start fee, pay for the travel fee, and then we'll take care of it. Then the bride feels like she's doing something, but really you're working only 3 or 4 hours that you would work 1 hour later. If you can choose to do that so that you can appease. I typically will do $50 to $75. And then the travel fee is like, if it's less than 25 miles or 20 miles from the salon, it's $75, $50 to $75. If it's like I went to Leavenworth, I required her to pay for the Airbnb for the night before, a portion of it. And then the travel fee was $150 because it was 70 miles. And then she paid for an early start fee at $75. Then for the 6 people to get their hair done. I'm going to tell you, I could have doubled that and it still wouldn't have been worth the time. And I had a contract because it was a horrible experience. Like still sometimes even the big contracts that people commit to, the people can sometimes just make it terrible. So guess what? If I wasn't getting paid thousands and thousands of dollars to do that, I would have just walked out and quit. But it was worth the money to me to go over there. And I required her to pay for my stay because I had to be over there. I just said, this is what's included. If you want to work with me, this is what is the fee's going to be. And if she says no, then I don't have to go to Leavenworth. It was awesome. But no, she said yes. I was like, okay. It was the most I'd ever charged anyone, but it was also probably one of the hardest and the worst weddings that I'd ever done. It was with Katie Stevens. She was the makeup artist. And so me and her just were the whole day, we're looking at each other like, I don't know if this is worth the money. But it was at the end of the day because we got paid for our time. Handsomely and generously. Something to think of in your business is if you are doing, let's say, extensions or chemical peels or packages, and it's going to be a series of things that people are going to commit to, I would really, really, really consider requiring a deposit. And when I say like a deposit, first off, you have to get a deposit no matter what for a signed contract. Like whether that's 50% or at least the bride service, and like you'll create rules and stipulations around your contract. But for these high ticket services, no matter how much you charge, if you don't get a deposit on that, do not commit to a day, do not commit to a service, nothing. Extensions, 50% of the service. That pays for the hair so that if they cancel, you're not just out the hair because the hair is custom to the client, not vice versa. Same thing with bridal stuff or chemical peels or blowout packages. I sell 3 blowouts for $120, but I require them to pay for all of it, not a deposit, all of it, and then they can get 3 because that's a blowout package. But my bridal services, it's 50% and it's due at least, the signed contract has to be at least 120 days before the date of the wedding, because that gives me 4 months to prepare with all of the appointments that they're going to need, the timeline, communicate, get somebody else networked if we need it, sign the contract so that I can plan, because my life is not planned a week at a time, it's planned months out at a time. And typically brides and anybody looking for events is a year in advance right now. So any high ticket services that you do, whatever it may be, even let's say the barbers that have like want to offer groom services or something, like you're going to want to be able to pay everybody a deposit. So if the makeup artist requires $100 or $150 deposit, you need to know that so that that's in your contract. Or if I'm like, oh, hey, Michaela wants a deposit and then Berta needs a deposit and everything, the deposit the bride pays is going to be those fees right out the gate. Oh, you want to be able to have this event and then I have a preferred vendor. If you want 10% off, like we're going to have a signed agreement and a deposit paid, and it has to be at least 50%. The rest is due within 48 hours before the event. Like it's just, you're creating policies, and it's really just like, if you're going to pay for these high ticket services and this rate, you're going to pay a deposit for it so that we can guarantee that this is going to work out. And it's just, you've created a policy which creates like, this is what is required. And then the conversation piece becomes a lot easier. Does that make sense? Is that landing for you? Mm-hmm. Do ladies on Zoom have any questions? Sarah, are you good?
Yeah, I'm good.
He was like, I'm good too. Okay. I'm just like rolling right through this here. Okay, we're gonna talk about like the journey of a high ticket service and the contract being signed, and then we'll go into kind of a little bit of what the experience should be like, how you should operate it, and then we'll talk about the example contracts. Sound good? Perfect. So what happens before a client even calls you or finds you? They have an interest in something, that a service that you have offered or a service that's out there. So first there's interest in what the service or the item or the experience. They're interested in something. Then they do research and then they find you. And then they come in and they do an inquiry of like, hey, I'm looking for somebody for my event. Do you have this date available? Do you have September 1st, 2023 available? It's the first process. Like the client finds you and they're like, I'm interested in this. You look like somebody, or you were referred to me by somebody, and like, are you available? And then you go from there, from this journey that they're on, then you now, this right here, after they have contacted you, is the very first opportunity for you to like hone it in and take control and say, this is what is required. And if you do this step, this very first step, as soon as somebody contacts you and you get it down and you get it well, make it super simple, the rest of this just flows so much easier. This second step here in this journey is almost the most crucial, because here you can obtain information from them, the info that you need. Like, what are you looking for? You know, is it hair, makeup? Are you looking for a package or a service? Or are you looking for retail items, or, you know, swag for your wedding, customized stuff? And then you can really, this is called setting the frame. And when we talk about setting the frame, I'll kind of give you an example. When a client reached out to me, hey, are you available September 1st, 2023? I was referred to you by, you know, Bobby Sue down the street. And I say, actually, I do have that. Like, thank you so much for contacting me. I'm grateful that you were referred to me. What is your first and last name, your phone number, and your email address? And I will email you a bridal contract. You can look it over, and if you have any questions or anything, just let me know. And if it looks good to you and you want to move forward, just let me know, and I'd be happy to assist you with whatever you needed. All I'm doing right here in the very beginning is saying, this is how what it is to work with me. And then that piece, that contract that you created, that's everything that they're ever going to want to think to ask. It better be in there. It's going to be gather all their information. I want to know how many people are part of this, what services, where's the venue location, are there pictures being taken before, like what time do I need to be there, how many hours do you need, how many shirts do you need, what are the colors? Like, you get to start to kind of be like, I want to, like, you get to choose whether this works for you. And if you just send them the contract and email it to them and you're like, hey, look, let me know, all you're doing is providing good customer service for them. So the conversation is just you saying, this is what it is to work with me. Check this out. If you have any questions, just let me know. Because if somebody wants to argue with you with your price right there, you get to cut them out. But at this stage versus getting all the way to the wedding day. Does that make sense? And so once you set the frame, you just email them, or send. Emailing is the easiest. You can do DocuSign too. That makes it really easy. I will email the brides, and they typically will scan it or fill it out, and they'll just email it back to me. That's worked for me for a long time. Or sometimes they're like, hey, I'd like to book a consultation and talk to you about it. And then they bring the contract in signed with to their consultation, which is also fine. But you can email the contract, and then all you're going to do is follow up afterwards. So what you're doing is, when I talk about the experience down here, all you're doing with the conversation piece is just saying, this is customer service, good customer service. And you're creating this structure of like, this is how you work with me, and there's no other way. Does that make sense? Okay. So once they email the contract, and you say, hey, look, I sent you the contract. Let me know if you have any questions. I look forward to working with you. So simple, so easy. You can tell I do it all the time because it's easy for it just to roll off. And I typically do that via text, or just send it in the email. Create a script and save it on your notes, or save it on your computer, and just say, thank you for your interest in mail-in bartending, or but that's okay designs for your bridal day. Please review this contract, and if you have any questions, let me know. All you're doing is kind of repeating yourself, like, I'm available for you. That creates a good experience for them. If you have a package available, you're going to know that they're going to have some questions for you. And you can answer these questions if they're like, oh, I didn't know you networked with barbers. And then you might be like, yes, we do. let me make sure this barber is available before we move forward and sign these contracts, you know? You can do some communicating back and forth, or, you know, like, oh, let me, you know, I sometimes need 2 people. She's like, I have a bridal party of 8. And I'm like, oh, great, we can make that happen for you. I just had that happen, like, hey, we have 7 people to get ready in 3.5 hours. Is that gonna be okay? I'm like, it's gonna be perfect. So then they sign the contract. And then they send it back to you. Expect there to be more questions. This is where you get your deposit. Do not block off the day. Do not promise anything and do not agree to anything unless this contract is signed. And this could also be the same process for somebody coming into the salon. They see your stuff or they want services done by you. They send you an inquiry and you say you have to sign, you know, or I require the hair deposit. They agree to it and then book an appointment and come in. Same thing, same process. We're just talking about big event contracts, but you can still operate the same in your salon. Answer any of these questions, and then if their questions are kind of all over the place, now you can be like, hey, look, but let's hone this in a little bit. Because remember, they've signed the contract, you haven't. They've said, hey, look, I want to hire you. Until you sign that contract and give it back to them, nothing is done yet. But if they're going to give you a deposit, sign this contract for the day of, you should sign it and probably send it back to them if they're willing to go through this and you just say, hey, this is how much it is, and they don't want to argue with you about pricing. They might just say, hey, can we let you know closer to the day of? And you get it in writing, like if they're in an email or a text message, like, yes, we can narrow it down, but I am going to require a deposit of some sort for the day of. Are these couple steps making sense?
Mhm.
Okay. So then after people sign the contract and you answer all their questions and you get the deposit, then what you do with them is you tell them what to expect next. Now, in my bridal contracts, I already have the process. Like, you're gonna come in for a consultation, it's complimentary. You're gonna come in for a trial, it's complimentary. And then the day of, this is what to expect. It's already in the contract. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna reiterate, recommunicate. All I'm doing is just saying what my policies are. But what it's doing is creating conversation for the client, for them to be like, oh, this is high service. Oh, she knows what she's doing. Oh yeah, this team is amazing. When I'm like, oh, don't worry, I'll build a glam squad for you. We'll take care of everything that you need. If I need to bring 3 or 4 makeup artists, we will find them. Like, just let me know. The faster we can get this done, the easier it is. Because then the faster I can lock in this money, I can start paying everybody else like deposits, and then they can block off the day, and then boom, the team's built. Now it's just doing trial runs and showing up on the day of. Or get that deposit, and if they decide they're going to cancel the birthday party, like, at least you've been paid for half of your day that you're not even going to work, you know? Or is there a refund policy? That's probably something I should have written over next. Do you have a refund policy? Like, I have 0 refunds if you cancel your wedding within 72 hours, unless it's an act of God. Let's say the venue burns down and the bride doesn't get to have her wedding. Are you still going to ethically charge her? Or are you still going to be like, oh no, you still have to pay me for my day, for your day, or for the time? Because your venue, or what if the venue canceled? That happened to a bride of mine. The venue canceled on her. And she goes, I'm trying to look around. Now you have a choice. You can either morally and ethically work with her, or you can just stand by your contract. But if a bride's day got canceled and they reschedule, let's say you don't have a day available, ask a beauty professional to step in place for you and give that contract to the other beauty professional, help the bride out, good grief. Or you can figure out a different day and you move the date and you make a new agreement. Like, you can choose to do that with your contracts because you're in control, because you've already been like, this is how you work with me. She's agreed to that. If she goes out of that, or the client goes out of their agreement with how many they're going to order or change everything, and they've already signed the contract, like, already signed the contract, I'm sorry. When we did this wedding in Leavenworth, the day of, the bride was like, oh, there's a couple girls that don't want to get their hair and makeup done. And me and Katie had to stand there and be like, oh, well, you signed the contract. Like, that's fine if they don't want it done, but the contract has been signed and the money has already been paid. Because we've already been paid. Like, we had deadlines. So they even tried to cancel, and guess who ended up getting all of their hair and makeup done when they knew that they weren't gonna get a refund? But we just were like, yeah, no, you're not gonna change it on the day of, like, you signed a contract. And anytime they want to try to test you or screw with you, be like, no, yeah, no, you signed a contract. And that's your response versus having to come up with this like emotional thing, like, no, you signed a contract. Sorry. You have all their information. You have their card information because you have these rules. And they sign it and they send it to you and you sign it back. Like, it's an agreement. You could technically take somebody to small claims court over that and you would win. But this is a business agreement for services rendered. And it's a lot of money for an event. So you might as well stand behind your contract. You never know what can happen, I'm telling you. Okay, so tell them what to expect next. So mine is like, great. I had a girl just sign a contract last night. Her wedding's not until July. This is what I said. It's great. I look forward to working with you. Just reiterating, like, hey, this is great for us. I'm looking forward to working with you. Here's what to expect next. I said, we need to book a consultation. We're going to come in. We're going to look at photos. I was like super detailed because I'm just like creating friendly conversation to make her comfortable. She's going to pay me, what is it, like $1,200 deposit? Yesterday she paid me, so for something in July. So you might as well just like really make sure she knows like that you're not just gonna be like, oh, call you in July, you know. And we'll book a consultation. It doesn't need to be done now, is what I told her. I said, but probably by the end of the year, because that gives me the consultation. Then we can book the trial run. Also, what if she needs color done? What if she needs these other services or barbering services you package with other people? You're going to need to get them on board, and all those appointments need to be booked and stuff. So the better you can prepare with your contract, the easier it is to network and make these contracts huge and make, like, if we want to offer a package like with Sarah to have like a bridal, like a bride and groom cups or shirts or whatever, like a custom package, and they want that, I should probably let Sarah know 6 to 8 months in advance so that she can talk to the bride about a custom design, so it's not being dropped on her. So what to expect next, like, this is what you need to do. And you're guiding the client. You're still in control of that one conversation into the contract. And then that creates this experience like, wow, they've got it together. And it's really not hard to do this, but it is hard to create it and be like, oh, this, like, how do I operate? This is how you just operate. Just policies, contract, and then just keep having the same conversation over and over, and treat somebody how you would want to be treated if you spent that much money. What to expect next. And then this is where I say, if anything changes, you need to let me know as soon as possible. Like, if there are any changes to how many people, the hours, the time, like, brides in July, in September aren't going to know their timeline for July. But if they're telling you, hey, we're going to get ready in the idea is to get ready in an Airbnb early in the morning, and then they decide that they can't be to the venue till noon, and you expect to be there at 8, and they haven't told you it changes, like, that might mess with your day. That might not be something you can work out. So I just tell them so that they can never say, hey, you never said. So that if they try to get all wonky on me, I can be like, no, look, I told you, let me know ASAP. All this is just more controlling of the frame. When you're saying, if there's anything that changes, let me know, so that you can be like, I'm still in charge here. Like, I'm operating this, I'm here for you, but you also have a part to do in this too, to receive this service. And then after that, it's just your appointments, your deadlines. Like, do you have, does the payment need to be paid within 48 hours of the event or on the day of or whatever? Like, you need to make sure, like, hey, this is what to expect next. And then now let's book your appointments. Or let's book an appointment to sit down and have a final discussion about your timeline and everything, so that we're on the same page. Like, if you're running an event and you're like, I'd like to sit down and make sure that we have everything finalized 7 days before, like, make sure, like, hey, we need to talk in May or June about booking that for July or August. And then you can just write a note. I mean, if this is in your calendar that this date is coming up, do your due diligence. And if they don't call you within 30 days of their event, reach out to them. You're just checking up on them, because I won't hear from this bride until probably December. So I have the information. I'm like, oh, okay. At that point, like after after they've have interest in you, they've contacted you, you've obtained their information, sent them the contract, and set the frame, like this is how we operate. They agree, and the deposit's been paid. You can see how like this is smooth, right? Then here's what to expect next. You're just communicating with them. You're just having a conversation about this is how you're gonna operate with me. Like, and then you're setting all these appointments, and then you're pretty much locked in unless something happens. The journey is actually quite simple and can be fluid, but we get kind of stuck in this like, are people gonna pay me what I'm worth? Like, oh, can I operate? Can I charge somebody that? What's the worst that they're gonna say? No. But if they paid your deposit, they've already said yes. If they've had interest in you, they said yes. If they're like, yes, email me, and they respond to you and they give you your email, it said yes. You just need them to continue to say yes to you. And then you deliver on the day. And you guys are more than capable of being able to do anything. What are you hearing, Jessica, for you in this process? Because you've talked about confidence around conversations and contracts.
Confidence is my big thing. So like, explain it. I guess my biggest thing is when they inquire with me, I am nervous about telling them. They always ask like, what do you charge per hour? And I get nervous because before I was like, a business owner, I would just be like, oh, well, this is what my old price was, and I was afraid to tell them my new price, and I would be afraid for them to like not want to use my services.
Mhm.
But so, like you said, what's the worst thing that they could say?
Right. Well, I would never talk about the old price.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say, oh, my price
No, I
used to
don't.
be, because they're gonna
Yeah.
say, oh, maybe I can get a discount.
Yeah.
That's why if they ask you, because I always have people like, hey, are you available this date? And what do you charge? I don't even respond to that. I don't even tell them, oh, I charge this much and this, because I got like a crap ton of fees that go into this. Like, it's not just one price, it's like a customizable package, which is a good way to actually market that now that came in my brain and out of my mouth. A customizable event package or bridal package or whatever. Then you just redirect and you said, oh, what's your email address? Like, thanks for contacting me. What's your email address? I'll send you the contract. Has everything that you're going to need to know inside there. If you have any other questions, please let me know. Now you do not have to talk about the price. You do not have to feel weird about it. You send the contract that's in paper. It is what it is. And they can say no without you having any weird feelings about what you charge. And I would challenge you, like, if you don't feel like you charge enough, you probably not, and you need to charge more. You said something about tipping policy in your contracts. Figure out what that is. Like that you're not allowed to have a no tipping policy, or like a QR code or whatever will be available. Or if you're contracting with another event space, what is their tipping policy? Yeah. And so you can put that in there, and then you don't have to have that conversation with the client about the pricing. Let the contract do that.
Yeah.
And if they feel like it's just like adding up and adding up and adding up, do you not think that venues do that? Do you not think that these big salons do that? Do you not think that other people in the beauty industry and everything are not sitting there and charging for early start fees, travel fees, like they're nickel and diming brides and people in event spaces, because events are lucrative. And so if you're going to sit here and be like, oh, well, I used to charge 50, but now I want to charge, no, it's $100 an hour, and it's an all-inclusive experience. The way you talk about it and the way you message it could also give you more confidence. Just say it's $100 an hour in your contract, and you say, to work with me, the fee is,
Yeah.
And then just say this is an all-inclusive package for your wedding day. Maybe you sit down and jot down some different package ideas, and maybe you do packages and let them choose what works for them. And then that gives them a range of prices. But if you just don't answer the question, like I totally like, boom, especially in our coaching organization, they'll be like, in immersion, if they've already spent almost 10K to be there. And then they're like hearing about this business group, and they know if this is a high ticket 4-day program, what is the year-long program? And they're asking us and asking us. You think we answer like, oh, coaching is going to be X amount of dollars for the year? No. We just said, we'll talk about that when the time is right. We'll talk about the Circle of Champions if you're invited and it works out for us too. We're controlling the conversation and not giving them a price, because that's not how we operate. We have a contract, like, oh, you want the coaching contract, you're going to pay, you sign a contract, payment is due right then and there because of how much money, because of how high ticket that coaching is. And then it's a monthly thing. It says right in there, it's like a monthly fee that you have to pay. And then it's just auto deducted on a day. You get to pick the day and time. So you can see that they built a contract to get people locked in to that amount of money, so that they don't just come and then, you know, thousands of dollars and all their time is unaccounted for. And it makes people really highly committed when they have to pay a high amount. So if you're charging $10 an hour, people are going to be like, wait, why? This is really cheap. Or if somebody's like, wow, your rate's really really good, you better raise your prices. That is a sign like, oh, you're cheap. Like if anybody's like, oh, the rate is good or cheap. No, like your skills are worth it. If you're going to build in packages, let's say hair, skincare, nails, like the whole shebang, like a whole bridal package for the bride of some sort, or an event like I will set up, I'll do the bar, I'll clean it up, I'll do all of that. It's all inclusive experience. You don't have to do anything. Or you can get this cup, these 2 cups, these champagne flutes, these t-shirts and everything for this package price. And let's say you all were going to be willing to discount $10 to the 10% for the bride. Make your prices higher when you send them the contract. If you don't want to really discount 10%, raise it $20, $100. Like just say, hey, this is how much the package price is, so that everybody still gets paid full price, but the bride thinks they're getting a discount. Or just honestly give the 10% discount all the way across the board if the whole thing's met in the contract signed. Do it however you want. But this is just really all about like this conversation piece back here is just all that does is create confidence of this is how you work with me. And if they see the price and they're like, oh, it's $100 an hour to have her, I don't know. Do you think Graybridge cares about charging people $10,500 for one day and they're booked out for a year? People are paying the money, and that's just to have a venue there. But they're an all-inclusive experience. You still have to pay the bartender, and then that venue has tons of contracts that they have with the vendors. You still have to pay your hairstylist. You still have to be like, people will pay it. But everybody had a contract. That's why the event was so good. Everybody got paid. And if the venues are going to have these big high contracts, you should step up and operate just the same as them. And then that creates confidence, clarity, and then the experience of having these over and over and over again. You're like, oh, I've got this. Then the money is easier. When I say it's like locked in, it becomes once you do this one or 2 times, or you package with someone and you guys get paid, and you're gonna be like, oh, that's pretty easy. It makes it pretty easy. Bridal stuff and event stuff is not hard, but there is a process that people have to go through. And you just have to be like, it's called policies, and then setting the frame and controlling the conversation. But also, I would also challenge you, Jessica, about the hourly rate. I would challenge you to do it, send it out, and have nothing about it. Don't have any thoughts about it. Send it out. Somebody asks you, do the work, create the contract, send it out. And if somebody signs it, then it is what it is. If you're sending it out and it's not really landing, you can make adjustments. But if you put it out there and it's $100 an hour and you have 3 or 4 brides, that's going to tell you right there that you probably charge $100 an hour. And now you're making more than what you would have charged if you're just having a conversation with someone. And then you don't have to deal with those like weird emotions where you're like, oh, I feel bad, or I don't really have the confidence in my words. If you don't have to have confidence with your words, if you just have a process in place. Michaela, Sarah, do you guys have any questions or any comments? What you're hearing?
Well, a little bit, but I feel like I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing. So it's hard for me to build any kind of like contract just because I don't know, I feel like I'm making products that I don't really care to make. So then I'm like, why am I even doing it? And then I'm like, well, I really like doing this. So I think I'm still in the mix of figuring out what exactly I'm doing with the business, if that makes sense. Because
I would say for your business specifically, maybe not necessarily like you could network with people in the industry to
right,
items, but if you're going to do bulk orders, this is where your contracts are going to come in place. Like if
right,
this orders with you
yeah,
or Christine's event and everything, like, yeah, you can send an invoice all day and design it, but if somebody wants 500 pieces, that's going to be a lot of your time and you're going to have to invest a lot of money. So you
right,
could guess what do you want, your inquiry form, and then once they're like, this is what I want, you should be able to send them a thing like, this is how much it's going to cost, sign here, and a depositor due is the full payment is due before anything is made. That's the type of contract.
Oh, I'm learning because I've made some stuff and then people have backed out and I'm out the product and I've wasted like a ton of my time. So lately I've like a little frustration, but also it's because I'm not confident and I'm not like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not like, okay, it'll be this and this and this. You need to pay me. And then they pay me and then I do it versus like, yeah, I can do that. No problem. Buy the shirt, order it, do the design. And before you know it, I've spent like an hour on something and made it. And they're like, oh, I decided I don't want it. I'm like, what the fuck?
I know. I would get payment. I would get payment. Like, where do you go? What clothing or apparel or Etsy or anything do they send it to you before they buy it? Like you can.
Well, that's the thing. Like there's been quite a few Etsy's that I've purchased because people are like, yes, I want that design. I'm like, perfect. I mean, it's not a lot for the SVGs, but still it adds up. And I'm like, I've bought like 4 or 5 things that people have like, oh, I don't want it. I'm like, well, you said you did. So,
well,
you know, the $2, $3, $4 adds up. And then I think I just get frustrated.
Well, that's just a different process that needs to be put, right? Like, okay, you want these. Okay, I would create an estimate or an invoice, require them to pay it. You can send them, like a design.
Right.
Get 1 to 2 edits on the design and then have them approve it.
Oh yeah, that was another thing. Like I had a design approved and then I made it, sent him a picture, and then all of a sudden I dropped it off and he texted me later, hey, it's spelt wrong. And I was like, okay, well, you didn't catch that in the design I sent you as well as the picture. So it just, kind of put a little.
Always do a design approval.
Right.
And if they approve it, just like Vistaprint says, do you approve your design? You've read it.
Yeah.
Make sure there's no misspellings. It's exactly how you want. They approve it. And if it's misspelled, that's on them.
I know it. Yeah, I know it. It was on him, but I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry.
Yeah. I would just that for your business, the contracts come in getting the payment prior. Or if bulk orders, the deposit that is required, it needs to be the cost of the material. So if hair extensions, if somebody's going to order $500 worth of hair, I'm going to charge them $1,000 for that hair plus the service to get that applied. But they're going to pay for the cost of the hair, and that's going to be their deposit. I just don't tell them that I'm upcharging them 100% on the retail. Right. I don't have to tell them that. I say the deposit is 50% of the service. And if the service is $1,700, then they're, paying $850.
Right.
So that's kind of, I can help you too with that, with that process if you'd like.
Yeah.
Okay, we're almost done. How are you guys doing? Let's see, what time is it? 6:16. Okay. Jessica, when I say trial, this could be the conversation to narrow down the timeline and all the details. When I say trial for the beauty professionals. Same thing with you, Sarah. When I say trial, this could be all of your design approval, and this is all before making it, right? So your trial. So this is your trial runs, or this is just to confirm exactly what they want. So like in the hair industry and stuff, you're going to want to do a trial run. So on the wedding day, we can just execute. And then the day can go smoothly. Like no decisions need to be made on the day of the event. Everything needs to be done prior. No decisions with any retail or apparel or anything are to be changed after they are already made. Like everything should be done prior. That's why these trial runs, I always recommend them for no matter what you're doing. Whether it's a conversation where you said we're going to have to sit down and have a final conversation to make sure we're on the same page with everything. This is the most important thing before the day of, because this also creates clarity and confidence that if she says you're going to be there at 4, you're there at 4, and she's not calling you at 3, like, hey, I thought you said you'd be here at 3. And you can also I write notes in the contract a lot. Like, I'll write, okay, VRBO, 8 a.m. And then if they change it, I cross it out and write the date and say changed it this. Like, I just write a ton of notes all over my contracts after they've signed on the very back page. If something changes or what's going on, like, oh, I reached out to this person and they never responded, so that I have a record. So if somebody wants to say, hey, look, like, I'm going to cancel on you and be like, well, hey, look, I did my due diligence. And then let's say they want to charge it back. They can't, because I have the contract. You send that to the bank, they'll be charged and they have to pay it. So for the events too, like, oh, you were supposed to be here at 3 and I'm not paying you. Everything's already been paid prior to. Confirm with the client, and then you can get all the details. Like, are there pictures before? Is there a certain number of hours that people can have drinks? Like Gray Bridge was, you could only serve alcohol for a period of 4 hours. So whenever you serve the first drink 4 hours later, like, you have to know all of that, all of the venue details. Where are you going? What time? This is just another way, like when you do your trial run, this should be very close to the day of. So then you've done your trial run, they like their hair or in the makeup, or they said they want some adjustments. When they do their trial run, whether I always take pictures of it and then take pictures of everything. And then if they decide that they want something different, I just write it in the notes. Like, oh, braids were awesome, but they want them a little bit lower, or veil was too high, or something like that, so that we know. So when I go back and look at the photo, like, hey, is this something we still want to do? They're like, and I said, and my notes say that you want to do something a little bit lower. They're gonna be like, who is this magic bridal hair person, or who is this event bartender? Like, wow, they've got it together. Like, they remembered that I said that. I mean, it just creates a better experience for the client. And then it's better for you because you can operate faster on the day of. So payment, when's your deadline? Like, when is the rest of the contract due? Is it 48 hours? Is it 72? Is it the day of? I've done all of the above. And I've also been like, no, a whole contract needs to be paid prior to like months prior. Depends on how risky I think the client is. For my client Jade, like, as she said, hey, I'm gonna have all the girls pay you. Is that okay? And I said, yeah, that's fine, because I trusted the client. I said, but I'm gonna need you to pay for hair and makeup and the deposits and the trail fees and everything to guarantee it. She's like, okay. And then the day of, they just paid us. And I was totally cool with that because I trusted the client. But I still went through this process of like, what's the timeline? We did the trial run, like, got very clear and confirmed the other people are paying on the day of, right? But I still had her credit card information. I still had a deposit paid. So it was still good agreement for me, even though I didn't get the 50% deposit of the total amount. Like, you can kind of customize things how you want. So if this deadline is not met, this is where a different kind of conversation takes place. Like, let's say 48 hours before the event, they have not paid you. What would you do? Call them. Okay. Michaela, Sarah, what would you do if you had a deadline and the client missed the deadline? Email. Okay.
Sorry, I stepped away. I missed what you asked.
I said if a client missed a deadline for payment, what would you do?
Well, yeah, definitely reach out to them, but I guess that would be if you, well, in a contract, if you have anywhere in there that states like deadline will be charged this day, blah, 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 then you would just charge their card if you have it on file.
Correct. So this can be a fair conversation if somebody misses the deadline. This can do, you could have done everything so beautifully and then they missed this like 48 or 72-hour deadline. And then you reach out to them and they don't respond or something. I always, if somebody misses a deadline, which is very rare, I will always reach out to them in a friendly, like text or email or whatever that may be. Like, hey, I just want to let you know the balance on your contract was due yesterday. Let me know if we can move forward with payment. If I don't hear from you in the next couple of days, I will charge the card on file. There's nothing weird about that. There's nothing crazy. You're just restating what's in this contract. But what you're doing is you're following up like, hey, just want to let you know, right? There's some that forget and like, oh, I'll pay you right away. And then if you don't, and then you've told them, like, hey, it was due yesterday. If you don't pay it by tomorrow, I'm going to charge your card. You've notified them that you're going to charge the card and uphold the contract. If they ever try to dispute the charges, you can send that to the bank as well and just say, oh no, I informed them that I was upholding the contract and then they still didn't respond. You will get paid that contract if they try to dispute the card. Also, if the credit card is going to expire within the year that you have signed the contract, just like small tip, reach out to them before it's going to expire and say, hey, look, your card's going to expire. We need to put a different card on file. And if they say no, bad news bears. You're going to know that they're not going to try to pay that contract or whatever. This also, like this payment portion can also be done in payments. Let's say somebody's like, hey, can I pay you over the next 4 months from signing the contract to the day of? I would say, sure. I'd write that in like they agree to pay, 4 payments of $250 on these days. Now, if they don't kind of fall through that, they still have paid the 50% and the rest is due. But if they say they're going to make payments and they miss one, I just reach out like, hey, is this still the agreement? All you're doing is just asking them the questions of the things that they have agreed on. So it shouldn't be uncomfortable and weird because you're just following what your policy is and making sure that they're still on the same page. And then from a client's perspective, like, this girl don't play. Like, this girl follows, she knows what she's doing. And when people are like, how many of these do you do? I'm like, a lot. And I talk to a lot of brides all the time, which is okay, which is great. But I talk to them less and less and less, and my problems are less because I have this process down. And I don't really ever have people that miss deadlines because I've done all of this so far that's created such a good experience for them that they're like, they want to pay it. They want the person to be paid and they want to get everything done so that the next part on the day of is just all about execution. So this is execution. No plans. Like really no changes. When I say no changes, meaning like you can't just cancel 5 people. You can't just decide that, oh, I wanted you for 6 hours, but I only want you for 4. Or, oh, hey, I wanted this bridal package, but I'm actually not going to book those appointments. Like, can't do that the day of. Like the day of, we're executing on the agreement that we have made, and that's it. And the conversation I have around this is, and during the trial run, is I prep them, I set the frame and I prep them. The reason we do a trial run or the reason we have this last meeting or the reason we have this last ad approval, like design approval, is so that we can just execute this event or this, design of this or this production of the product. And that your day can just go smoothly. Be in, be out, and you can just enjoy your day. This is where your experience in the industry comes into play. You get to tell the bride or you get to tell the person running the event or your customer, like, I've been doing this a long time. The day of is not the day to be making big decisions. You get one decision and that's I do. Yes. If you've made it to the wedding day, hopefully, right? And that helps give ease of mind to the client. Like, oh, and then also, again, keeps reiterating, you're creating this like system, this process of like, oh, she knows what she's doing. Oh, and that confidence And that certainty of how you're operating your business comes after you do this a couple of times. And you're just like, yeah, no, we're not changing things on the day of. Like we signed off on everything, we've paid, we're just executing. This is the done deal. Like this is when you know you've made it. This is where all of that money lies. And if you build a team, if you have other beauty professionals come with you, or you're having packages, everybody by the day of is paid. This is this day of, and how you have showed up from the time that they've called you all the way through to their wedding day will determine if they refer more people to you. This refer portion is momentum. If you create momentum in this aspect on the day of, like you just have pushed all of this through, and there are going to be people that test you, but if you just stay consistent and you go all the way through here and you've created this great experience, is the last thing that we're going to talk about, the experience for the client, then they're just going to refer another person to you. I had 4 brides find me on a Facebook page because I keep getting referred. I don't even know who's referring me at this point. I don't even post photos. I don't even tell people I do hair. But my name, my salon name keeps coming up on this Engage Now What Facebook page. I'm not even a part of it. I refuse to be part of it because I don't even want to have to respond to the tags. But that's like, I did somebody's hair and they're a part of a Facebook group and they're constantly like, oh, you should see him more. Like, oh, you should see him more. Oh, Amore and Katie or Michaela and everything. Oh, did you not executive beauty suits? You can get all your services done. Like, they create packages. Let the client, the experience that you've given the client on the day of or through this whole time, be that powerful referral in Facebook to their friends on the day of. All those people that see hair, makeup, it's talk to the bartender, see all the swag, all the cool customizable stuff. They see that and they're like, wow, where did you get this? Then the bride, because you have created this amazing experience, or this customer or the client for the event, you created this experience that is just high. It's worth every dollar that you've charged. And then they're going to refer other people. If somebody has made it to the end of the day and paid you $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, they know other people in their life that will pay that too. And what if you do that? What 1 or 2 people tells 5 people? Then you have 5 contracts. What if each contract is like minimum of 4 hours, 4 or 5 hours, and you're charging $150 an hour? Now you have Friday, Saturday, Sunday all booked out in events. And now you're like, whoa, I'm doing a lot of events, I have a lot of contracts and everything like that. There's a lot of things going on. Right there will tell you price increase. And that's how your business income and your sales grow over time when you do events, is momentum. And that momentum can come from the way that you operate, and just you put it on a piece of paper and you let that be, this is the way we do things. Whether it's a deposit for a service, like a deposit for hair services are good, like very, very, very good for the clients because it holds them accountable. There's a lot of people in the industry that require deposits to book appointments. It's insurance for their time. And then they get there and the client pays the other portion of it. They think it's cheaper even though it's the same price. But then they go to people and say, hey, my stylist or this person, the bartender I'm working with, is so elite. Like, this is how she operates. Then those people just get to tell about their experience, and it cuts out the question and the weirdness for the people that are coming in. It might be weird in the beginning to put this in play, like, oh, what sticks, what doesn't. You do it a couple of times, they refer other people that just like, hey, this is the way I operate. And then they're like, awesome. And now you have 5 more contracts or 6 more contracts. Or you're like, hey, Lacey, I have this bride. She's looking for hair and makeup. I'm going to refer her to you. And then we're like, great, let's network together. You have a contract, I have a contract. We take care of the beauty side, you take care of the bar side. Even though it's not under one contract. Now you have multiple, but you're referring, and if you operate that way, and then somebody you refer also operates that way, it creates a reputation that, man, these people are killer in the industry. Then you're worth it already, but then it will make you feel like you are worth the money. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions about this journey process? The last thing I'm going to go into is the experience, which we've talked about. This is everything. The journey is all about the experience, but I have just a couple things to say about the experience for the bride, and then we'll kind of talk about some sample contracts that I have. Do you guys have any questions on Zoom? Okay, the experience. This is going to be the last thing we're going to write on the whiteboard. Why is the experience important?
Goes back to referral, we'll refer you and you'll get more business.
Yeah. The way you treat the experience, the more high-end or like elite service that you provide for them, the more money you're going to make in your business. So the experience needs to be a piece of this. And yes, conversation, how to have conversations around it might get kind of weird. The contract is the insurance for that. The contract is the insurance for the money. The contract is also insurance for the experience that you're going to do. It commits you to providing a higher level service. So if the experience is high and you are in high demand, the demand is high, that means the money generated is going up, which means the business is profiting more. At the end of the day, isn't that what we're after? Is the business profiting the most? That you're profiting the most for the services that you're providing for? Your time is the most valuable. And then when you have high prices, you're in high demand, you create this high level of experience, you're making money, your business is profiting, you're making referrals. You'll get to a point where you're like, I'm so booked out now. But if you go into $200 an hour, like the experience, exactly what Michaela said, is how you make them feel. Like, wedding days are absolute madness. Events, madness. Bulk orders, madness. Like, all of it is crazy and emotional. You have the ability to take all of the emotion out of all of this and then be able to deliver an amazing service so that the emotion is on this back end, which turns into more money. You get to kind of control where the emotion plays in, because they're going to bring emotion and all this weird stuff to you. But if you're setting the frame and you're controlling through this contract, there's going to be less pushback from people. People are going to be way less likely to like pull some crap. Here in our business, do you think that people just move out? They know that they signed a commercial lease. Like, they know that we're going to hold them to that contract. So they're going to think twice before like, oh, I'm going to move out and it's going to cost me 10 grand. Like, they're going to be like, well, maybe I might work it out and like have a conversation. Better for me, better for them. I'm not out the money and they're not out doing crappy stuff and I'm not getting screwed. So the experience is something that's super important in conversations and contracts. Like this, creating conversations and utilizing contracts makes the experience better. They go hand in hand. So that's why I said I got to talk about the experience a little bit, because this is where the profit lies, is how you make them feel, how you show up for them, how you control it. And then that will, the more money you make and the more tiers and the more you do this, the more contracts you have and stuff, that what you're talking about is like not feeling comfortable. You're going to be like, I know what I'm doing because I'm the shit, and it took me a long time to figure this out. Like, it took me a long time. I got burned quite a few times, and even in some contracts, not having contracts, having contracts, not maybe following every policy that I had about travel fees. And then they're like, oh, well, we decided to get ready in Covington instead of Seattle. And I'm like, F, and I'm out that time. Now my time is like more. If they start to change things on you, also, I know, start to change things on you and stuff like that, you can also make a new agreement and just say, hey, that's not in our original agreement. We're going to have to alter things. And if that's not okay, then we're just going to have to kind of end this. And then sometimes it's worth giving a deposit back. I've done that before and it was 110% worth it. It was 100% worth giving back the deposit at the end of the day, because the client was just very hard to work with. Okay, so I will slip this, Michaela, under your door. This is a bridal service contract. Sarah, I will also I can email you these, and Ilsa will also be putting these up in the private group for this to be downloadable. You guys can customize this, but this is just a very generalized contract. It's gonna, all the information is gonna create the policies. You're gonna be able to see kind of how I operate in my salon. Now, this can all be changed. I change them all the time. And you can also put in things or not put in things, but you'll be able to see this is the structure kind of how events or high ticket services. So first, it's in the, on the top, it says, congratulations on your recent engagement. Thank you for choosing your business to help assist you on your wedding day. We understand that all of your hard work and planning that is involved on your day. We want everything to be perfect. What you're doing is setting the frame at the very intro of this contract. Like, I want everything to be perfect for you. I'm here for you. That's building reputation. And now you don't have to tell them like, oh, hey, I'm good. Like, this tells you like, hey, I'm here for you. That's, you start the experience right away. And then it says, we will do everything we can to ensure your day runs smoothly. We've assisted many brides, their bridal parties, in creating beautiful styles for their day. Please complete this form and return at least 3 months prior to your wedding day. Deadline, like first paragraph. You want to work with me? Great. Thank you for choosing us. We've done this a lot. You have a deadline. Like, frame right away. And there are some people that be like, hey, can you do my wedding hair in like 3 months or 2 months or whatever? If you have the day available, then that's great. But I would try to get as much money, if not all of it, as soon as possible. Name, home, phone number, cell phone, very basic intake. What is their address? The reason you want some of this personal information from them, let's say they back out on a $4,000 contract, you have to take them a small claims court. All the information you need to do to serve them is right here. So this also is setting you up in case somebody breaches this contract with you. The wedding date, what time are they getting married? What is the wedding location? Are there pictures prior to the wedding? What time? What this is doing is it's helping the bride create a timeline for the day of. Or if you do, we have skincare intake forms. I'll talk about that in a second. It helps kind of tell you like, oh, this is about how many people and how the time. And if they're like, oh, I don't know, you're going to know like, oh, we're going to have to really like figure this out. And you're going to have to really control the bride in that sense. I don't want to say control, but like steer the bride for clarity, or whoever's hiring you for the event, or so you're getting, and the same for Sarah, for you, it's like the business information, like what are they, this is just like their intake information. How many shirts do they want? What color do they want? Is there a design and everything? So it's just information. Will you be receiving makeup services? Now, this is a big one. This is where you start to network with people. Don't put this in your contract if you're not actually going to consistently work with someone. You can take it out if you just want to do hair for someone, but I also could put in there, will you be receiving men's barbering services? Will you be receiving a skincare services? You can do that on the first page, or you can do that on the pricing page, whatever you prefer, or packages. You can set it up however you want. But this tells me in the very beginning, if they say yes for makeup, I need to go hire a makeup artist because I don't do makeup. If you have 2 bars and you need 2 bartenders, like how many bartenders are needed for this event? If it says 2, you're gonna know you're gonna need to go get someone. So that she's not like, oh, there's 3 bars and there's 2 bartenders, and and then you're like, it gives you time to plan. How many people are in the bridal party? How many people are receiving certain number of hair services? How many hours do you have to work? How many shirts are going to be ordered? Like, this is where we are obtaining information through this contract for the event. And then I also put on there is, like, for bartending and events, you're always on site, but hair and skincare and stuff like that, some are and some are not. If a bride's going to come to the salon and there's 7 of them coming and we have 140 square foot space, I think I need to know that, because we need to figure something out, because I can't send people in my room, It just helps create clarity, helps the bride or the client plan. On the back, it's just like how many people are in the party. This is specifically pertaining to day of hair and makeup and stuff. How many people are in the party? How many services are being done? For you, Jessica, I would say, what is the time that I have to be there? Is a copy of a business license, insurance, all that required by the venue. These would be questions that I would ask on the back so that because if the venue is going to require insurance information or like a liquor license, will a liquor license need to be pulled? do you need or do you need mail-in bartending to obtain a liquor license, or are you gonna do that? You know, and if you obtain it and it costs you something, there needs to be a liquor license fee, you know, in your contract. So you'll know if they say, yes, I need you to get the license, you're gonna know, oh, okay, they're automatically gonna pay this plus the travel fee and this licensing fee, and you're gonna package it together for them. So it's just a way to get information and kind of write it down. And then it says additional information notes. This is where I write notes. Like when we sit down and talk about this and they're saying things, I'm like, oh, okay, she's gonna have a river shoot at 2:00 in the afternoon. So we're gonna do her hair, and makeup and everything, but she's gonna go get in the river. How is that gonna last? So then you can kind of start to more customize things for the bride or for the client or whatever, what have you. This is probably the longest contract that I have, and probably one of the most important, because this is really those big events services. Same thing with you, Sarah, for bartending as well, because I know that you do some of that. I know Firewater has a lot of agreements, and then you guys are hired. The bride goes through all of this with Firewater before you even get there. You're just the bartender that gets to go.
Yeah.
And if you ever want to do bartending or events on your own, this is something that would pertain to you as well. And then it says, as a part of our wedding agreement, again, we're in a bridal agreement, not a contract. And then their name goes up there, or your business name, like More Hair Design requires a credit card information to receive these appointments. And it says, we also ask that any adjustments or cancellation of any appointments be made 72 hours prior to the appointment. Another deadline. If you are going to change anything, it needs to be done 3 days prior to the date. And if they're like, oh, we're changing, I said, no, sorry, there's no changes that can be made. That's this, because she signed that was why I still got paid on the day that everybody wanted to cancel hair and makeup. I'm like, oh no, you already agreed to that. So I don't have to be like, and then I'm out the money. And then it says, if changes or cancellations are made less than 72 hours prior to the appointment, the entire cost of the services will be placed on the credit card. You're telling them, if you cancel on me, I'm charging you. If you cancel 3 days before, I'm charging you the full amount. So when they sign this, they know. This gives you the green light to any credit card company if they want to dispute the charges. Say, no. They signed a contract and they knew. And then let's say they missed this 72-hour deadline. You send them a text message and everything. You charge them. They want to dispute it. I'm sorry. They knew this was signed. And the credit card company will give you all of the money. Then it says credit card number, name as it appears on card, expiration date, CVC code, and zip code. And then it says signature and the date. This is like an authorization form. A lot of contracts do this. And then it says, thank you for choosing whoever for services on your special day. Please do not hesitate to contact us at your phone number if you have any questions or concerns. All you're doing is communicating, right? Like, here's a rule and policy. Let me know if you have any questions. We'll charge you no matter what. Like, here is this. All you're doing is setting the frame and controlling the frame, and you're doing it through the contract. They read through this and agree to it. It cuts out a lot of that weird conversation. So then it says it says put your business name in, and it says the client name goes next. Agrees to the scheduled appointment times on the given attached forms, the prices outlined in this agreement. I understand and agree that a deposit of 50% of the total package price must be paid at this time. And I agree to pay the balance on the day of the event is where I'm at. Like, it has to be paid by the day of the event. And I understand that the deposit will not be refunded unless 3 days notice. Now, you could also say 30 days or 14 days, or you can change it however you want. You can customize it. This excludes the act of God clause, which means if there's an earthquake or a fire or something and they have to cancel, that you will be willing to work with them if they had to cancel. I understand no refund will be given for any member of the wedding party who must miss or cancel their appointment on the day of the event. Another insurance for me, for people that wanted to cancel on the day of. Like, nope, you signed an agreement. All I have to do is say, nope, you signed an agreement. Like, nope, that's what wasn't in the contract. You don't have to talk about it because it wasn't it. They agreed to this. And they're acknowledging it. And this is the power of a contract, is that you can put out all of this stuff and then it just gets taken care of for you. And then the bride's signature, or whoever, your client's or customer signature, and then yours. If they sign this, you sign it and give them back to them. That puts you guys both in a legal binding agreement. And you always need to give a client a copy of the contract that they signed. You absolutely have to. Legally in Washington State, you are required to, and actually every state, you are required to give a copy of whatever contract you and another person sign. At the bottom, you'll see like some lines. I put head stylist, assistant, makeup artist. That's for me. Like, oh, if I need to bring Berta or Michaela, I write it in there. And then on the side, I'll write like, oh, confirmed deposit paid. This is my notes to myself, like, oh, I've got my team bill. Oh, I have another bartender I need. Oh, I have this or that. I've confirmed with them. And so that if I go to that beauty professional and said, hey, you're confirmed for this, and they say, no, I'm like, well, I did pay you a deposit on this day. I have it in my contract. That doesn't necessarily go to the bride, but at least they're notes for you. 2 more pages. And then your business name, years of experience creating stunning updos, bridal styles, flawless makeup to create a stunning look on your wedding day. All you're doing is like painting this like, oh, we've done these amazing things. Yours can be, oh, we provide, you know, at Mainland Bartender, we provide an all-inclusive experience for the bride and groom to ensure, you know, ease and comfort on their wedding day. Like you can word it however you want. All services are priced to include the use of professional hair products. So that's what you can say. All it's guaranteed that the Mainland Bartending is licensed, funded, and insured, or licensed and insured, you know, and all licenses are up to date. You can do that. The rate does not include the cost of travel, headpieces, or hair accessories. You'd be surprised how many people just want to like, hey, can you go get extensions for me? I paid you a contract for my bridal hair. I'm like, yeah, no. That's not the way it works. And then here's kind of how you can tell them like what to expect next. Like, this is how I operate. First, this is what it's going to require. Like, you notice that all the money deadlines and all the agreement for money came first before we even talked about how we do things. Like, it came with like, we don't even know how much it's going to cost yet. But in the very beginning, they're already thinking about getting financially committed and what the rules are going to be around the money that they're about to spend. It's strategically designed like that. Because if you just go into prices and then the rules behind it, they're going to be less likely to sign it. If you're like, hey, this is who I am, this is the information I require, and this is the way I operate, this is the price for it, it's packaged differently. So it becomes more appealing and more appetizing for high ticket services. And then I go into the first thing we're going to do is consultations. And the consultation, this is what we do. In the appointment, we discuss everything, pricing, we sign a contract, we make agreements, blah, blah, blah. The second thing, practice run for the trial bride, or that final conversation that we have. And then on the day of, we're here to just execute those services for you and recreate everything that we did in the trial run for you. And then this is how much it is. This is how much a bride's up to is. This is how much extensions are. Your bridal party. I have mother of the bride and groom, the flower girl, or a child style, a groom or a men's style. You'd be surprised how many men need their hair done on the wedding day. It's another way for you to make $50, $60, $75 by just styling a guy's hair. This is where you can also say, like, these are the packages that I offer and stuff. Like, this is where your pricing goes in after you have them all committed. And it says, please note that wedding party prices are per service per person. So they can't just say, oh, I signed a contract for $250 and that's for everything. No, it says in there, it's per person. And touch-ups are included in the package price. If an artist must return to a venue location after the services are completed, meaning you get ready in an Airbnb and they want you to go to the venue to touch everything up, there is a fee for that. We're going to go right into like, there's a $25 return fee. You could even do $50, $75, you know, whatever it may be. And then gratuity of $20 will automatically be added to party 6 or more. Jessica, for you could say that this is where that tipping policy comes in. You can just write in like, these are what it costs for the services for the hours. These are the packages I have. And this is my tipping policy. That's where that would go into play for your contract.
That's what Firewater does.
Yep.
That's great. Because I get an automatic gratuity, and then usually we could put out a tip jar because we kind of, so then we like double up.
You can already build it into the thing. If a bride doesn't want tip jar, they're already going to have to pay you. a tip. So that cuts out that weird conversation you had to have about that person not wanting a tip jar out. But if you already had 20% added to it as a tipping policy, conversation over. If she says, oh, I don't want you to have a tip jar and everything like that, then you could be like, okay, because you've already made 20%. You could say okay to that. If you're not making any tips and it's just the hourly rate, then it starts to become not worth it. So if you just already have a tipping policy in your contract and they sign it, then it's a done deal. Offsite travel fees. And it says, for those who choose to have our artists travel to the location, please schedule your appointment 3 months in advance. That is crucial. You need to know where you're going on the day of. And if you're going to go on venue, you need to know exactly where, and it needs to be, you need to know a couple months before. And if it's like a VRBO or an Airbnb that they say they're going to do, you need to know what city it's in. You need to know where you're going to go, because the next thing underneath there is your travel fees. How much? Like if it's under 20 miles, over 20 miles, if it's a flat fee, you can do it. Early morning start time, that's in there. If you have like a cancellation or a no-show policy, let's say for like some skincare services or whatever, that's where you could put in, these are your fees, your off-site travel fees. So here's your prices for your services. Here are the fees and the tipping. Like you just handled all of the money all at one time. And it's all just on one piece of paper. After you're saying, okay, you want to work with me, this is the information I require. This is going to be your deadlines for the money. This is how much the services and the fees are going to be. Then you go into the last page and it confirms how many miles away are you, so that if you have two different fee prices, that you can early morning start time, let's say it says before 8 a.m. Well, you need to know what time. And so I have them put what time, and then the offsite, like all of the fees, total up the fees, and then make that bride initial that she cannot argue you're charging extra fees for the services. She has agreed to these fees. So it's another, like, can you see every little section? It's like deadline, money, deadline. This is how you operate. Money, deadline. This is how you're going to work with me. Money, deadline. Like, and I'm in control this whole entire time. And it's not necessarily control of the client as much as it is, like, this is the process to work with me. And it creates like really fluid, and there's no a lot of wiggle room for the bride or the client. The last part of this is important information. So these are just tips and tricks. Like, I arrive with dry, unstyled hair. What are the things that are going to help help that person that's signing the contract? You know, like if it's like if you have makeup, you know, or it's like if you have any changes, or if you need me to bring ice, or, you know, all of those things, like, are you going to include those? Do you have fees for, you know, having to lug all that stuff? Do you have a cleaning fee? Do you have this, or is that included? Like, just kind of, what is just general information that person's going to need? Basically, i.e., how can they better help you? How can they show up better for you? And when you say, hey, these are some tips and some things to remember when they sign this, and then they don't follow it, you can be like, you signed a contract. Like, that is what it is. And that becomes your response. And then what are they going to say? No, I don't care. I mean, if they do, you're still getting paid no matter what. But if it doesn't work out for them, it's because they chose not to follow the rules. And then you don't have to have weird conversations. And then at the very bottom, it just says, here's how you contact me. If you have any questions about bridal contracts or big contracts like that, high ticket services, nope. Okay. I'm going to go over these next ones pretty quickly. Michaela, you were asking about this client release form. I do have a client release form that basically is a template I'll let you have too. So you just fill out the client's information, and it says that you're releasing the stylist or the business of any responsibility or any liability because you do not recommend certain services, and what this client wants, or maybe they got their hair done somewhere else and you really are against or question them as a client, or maybe doing the service. This is where this release form comes in place, that, you know, you can, like this one says, I've not had any chemical processes on my hair within the last 4 weeks. Now, if they have had it done, they probably should not. Or I have had certain services done within the last 4 weeks, so that they can't say, hey, you melted my hair off. Actually, I told you that you getting your hair done 2 weeks ago, permed, and then coming here for a bleach and was going to melt off your hair. And I didn't recommend it. But you decided to do it anyways. This releases you from her trying to sue you or trying to get out of the corrective color or get out of the hair extensions or whatever it may be, whatever service you don't recommend. And then you can put in here, it says the cost of the services that you're about to have. Let's say you're doing a corrective color and you need to like do blank canvas and then you have to color it or you have to do all these things. I would put all of that in there. And it says in this like red box here, due to past history and the condition of your hair, we cannot honor our 2-week guarantee. However, we will perform adjustments for a charge and the client has to sign it. So they can't say, oh, you've done my corrective color and it's messed up. It's been 2 weeks. Like, no. As soon as we do this, there's going to need to be an adjustment. It's a corrective color. So they have to pay for it full price. It's just another one of those things that cuts out that weird conversation in your business and the way you do color and everything. The client signs it and the stylist signs it. Michaela, do you have any questions about a client release form?
No, I'm good. Sorry, I was checking out.
No, you're fine. Next is like a deposit agreement form for like hair extensions. Sarah, this can relate to you for your retail of like, this is how much it's going to cost you for a deposit. This is also, I'll send these to you, Sarah. How much is due on the day of delivery of the products, and a deposit's required. And so this basically just says, hey, a deposit is going to be required for this high ticket service that you're getting. This says hair extension, but it can be used in any business and be used for anything. Jessica, if you already have like a 4 or 5 page contract, you don't need a separate one for your deposits. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. But for hairstylists and stuff, or chemical peels or memberships, like Christina was talking about, this is like a 1-page agreement. Like she's got a membership agreement and it's a deposit to have all these services done. You know, it's pretty straightforward, almost set up the same way as the deposit part in the bridal service contract. And then I have a skincare one, which doesn't pertain to either of you, but I'll go over it. It's like a skincare intake form. A lot of this stuff is done digitally nowadays, but let's say you're kind of old school and you want paper, or maybe you're concerned about what a client's had. Maybe you want to do an intake and a release form like this. So you'd be like, they signed off saying that they had never had a chemical peel, but clearly it looks like they've had a chemical peel and I put that on and burn their skin. This will be sent to the insurance company like, hey, no, they signed the release form. And it releases you of the liability of whatever that client has done, because clients are shady when it comes to getting some services done. So that's that really quick. Does anybody have any questions about the contracts? No? Jessica's like, no, I gotta write one. Okay, we're right at 7 o'clock. Perfect. I always love like right on time. Okay. I just want one share from, or I want to share from each of you. What is something that stood out a lot to you in this class, and what's something that you're going to do about it? Jessica.
I think that, I mean, it all stood out to me because I don't have a contract or anything, but mostly just like, once I get this contract, I can be more confident, because like right now I'm just like, I'm still kind of nervous if they're gonna not use my services.
Right.
So, and like my pricing and stuff, and that's the question I get a lot when they show interest in my businesses. It's literally, what do you charge per hour? And so I think that with my contract, I'm gonna do the journey part where it's, you know, let me send you my contract, email you my contract, and then I don't have to feel bad about.
Yeah, that's gonna cut out
my
a lot
prices if it's too high for them.
Yeah, and if it's no, it's no. Have nothing about it. Like you'll find clients that'll pay your prices.
Yeah.
If every person is telling you no, or you get a lot of them in a row, I would then maybe rethink that. And maybe not necessarily discount things, or maybe restructure the way that it's priced. Or maybe some of the fees are too high. Maybe the hourly rate's not too high, but the fee is some of the fees are too high. And that's kind of, or you can ask somebody like in the past, like, let's say you had a bride that was like, yeah, no, this is too much for me. Just is out of my budget. And then just say, okay, thanks. And then what's stopping you from being like, hey, I just like a little bit of feedback to make my business better? Is there something that really stood out that was a deal breaker? You don't have to ask that right away, but you can say, you know, what was, is there anything I can do to improve my business and my contract? Is there something that just really didn't sit well with you? Or was it a budgeting issue? Like, I just would like to know. And if every person's like, oh, you're out of my budget, that tells me like maybe the prices are maybe too high or the fees are too high. How do we condense this or make your packages a little bit more robust and more appealing to them, maybe through messaging versus have to discount a bunch of stuff? Does that make sense? Okay, Sarah, what's something that stood out to you the most and what's something you're going to do about it?
For me, I think it's like communication and like getting confident in what I'm actually making. Cause I feel like once I do that, then I'll be more prepared to talk with people and my pricing. Cause I like I had a friend, we were out somewhere and this guy had asked me about my business and I wasn't really comfortable talking about it yet. And she was like, hey, why are you not? And I was like, cause I don't think I'm ready. So I think I just need to really create a plan, get comfortable with my prices. I like the journey. It's hard to kind of see, but I like their notes on the journey and just kind of figuring that part out.
Yeah, think of it from a client's perspective, right? Like
Right.
if I'm going to hire Sarah for either an event or like for your contract with Eva for Santa, think about that. Like, what's the journey that you're going to go through as her manager? And what is the journey she's going to be on while having a manager? Or what's the journey from the time that somebody wants something made to the time that they pick it up?
Right.
And just write that down in your journal. Like, this is what it looks like.
Yeah.
And then you start to create policies and procedures around that.
Yes, I definitely need to create some policies and procedures for myself for sure.
So is that what you're going to do?
Yes. Yes. And I'm still needing to like really focus on my forms because communication has been kind of hard because I don't have like an order form yet established. So when people are inquiring, it's like a back and forth when I'm like, God, I just wish I had that form to send to them that can answer all of the questions. And then I know ahead of time kind of what we're doing versus like figuring out as we go.
Yeah. Create the forms.
Yes.
And you can send them to me too, and I'll check them out as well.
Okay.
Are you in a space where you can say something that you learned and what you're going to do about it?
Yes. The contract, automatically sending the contract instead of going back and forth about the price. I think that's a game changer. And then sending out contracts, because I honestly only sent out contracts to brides that were a big ticket or if they asked for one. So definitely to have something for myself and them.
Yep. I would every bride because it's standard in the industry, especially with bridal stuff. Also like events too, like you could also get into like somebody asked me to do hair for a quinceanera and had like do 6 or 7 people. And I was like, I just changed it from saying bridal agreement to like special occasion agreements, you know, and then changed all the words and sent it to her. And then I either hear from them or you don't, you know? So, okay, good job. Well, good job, guys. Thanks so much for showing up to class. And I will launch the next class, the like winter series, and let you guys know all the dates and times. You guys are more than welcome to come back to any class. And we'll have them at all different days and all different times kind of scattered out throughout the week so that everybody has an opportunity to come to class. Sound good? All right. Thanks for coming, guys. Thanks, Michaela. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you, Lacey.
You're welcome.